Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today. We are presenting for the first time the Global Security Perspective Symposium. I'm here from the University of Leeds in the UK on campus at the University of the West Indies in Mona. I'm here to present to you a wealth of expertise, a wealth of knowledge with regards to global security perspectives. I'm going to do this via a presentation slide, which will start now. Global Security Perspective. It is a 3-day symposium focused on global security and its perspectives. The 3-day symposium covers 5 topics: human, environment, national, transnational, and culture. You will hear from a wealth of experience, academics, and leading experts in these fields. The focus will be on identifying risks, challenges, problems, and different perspectives of what these key topics will look like in the future. We will join one another in an ideas exploration. The purpose is to open up new opportunities for research, collaboration, and funding, which will encompass a range of universities from the global north, the global south, the global east, and the global west. As we join ourselves and other communities together, we will focus on the perspectives. The aim is to promote a comprehensive, multidisciplinary approach to resolving the problems of the future, to foster a deeper understanding of security challenges, problems, and perspectives, with researchers collaborating with regards to methodologies, research outputs, journal publications, and the focus of where we should be spending our efforts as researchers in the future. We encourage dialogue and exchange of knowledge amongst our scholars, promoting integrated different perspectives with regards to analysing global challenges. We aim to facilitate the development of research opportunities between key universities: the University of the West Indies, the University of Leeds, Monterrey Tech in Mexico, the University of South Africa, the University of Strathmore, the University of the Cape Peninsula, and also other universities who are happy to join our exploration of security perspectives. With this focus, we want to joining together in order to explore these key factors. So we are going to now today launch our mission to promote global perspectives in health, well-being and security through research and exploration. The aim is then to focus specifically on what we do as a community, looking at diverse perspectives with regards to equity, diversity and inclusion, from an understanding of what it might look like to research from the perspective of the global majority. We are then going to move into an opportunity where we can focus on the next chapter. The next chapter includes proposals for book chapters and also proposals for research, case studies, and educational chapters focused on global security perspectives. We as a team have also identified key research questions, but these can expand as we develop a better understanding of our own perspective and each other's. So, for example, what do we know about security of global majority ethnic communities? What are the key concerns? Financial, health, food, security, cyber? How do we determine the gaps in knowledge with regards to global majority ethnic communities in the UK, in the West Indies, in the South Africa, in Mexico, and beyond? to explore why these questions are important to the global majority and why they're important also to the global minority. The exploration will give us an opportunity to co-collaborate. We're focused on transdisciplinary, co-production of knowledge, co-production of tools, and co-production of dissemination outputs. The next stage. After the 3-day symposium, after each day starting tomorrow, we will be in the University of the West Indies on Mona campus, exploring global perspective research agendas. And we welcome all researchers. We welcome everybody from PhD to professorial to actually collaborate in an exploration of what that might look like with regards to research questions and research topics in a workshop called Analysing and Presenting the Common Circuit. It will be myself, Professor Lisa-Dionne Morris, Dr. Curtis Busby-Eel from the University of the West Indies, also Dr. Omar Hertes from the University of the Leeds, who's also in transition from Mexico. So with this in mind, I present to you our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Professor Michael A. Taylor from the University of the West Indies, a profound and well-known researcher in climate. His focus is on Caribbean climate. He represents on a number of science panels, projects ranging from pilot programs of climate resilience to large and small scale understanding of emerging models of climate within the Caribbean region. Our next presenter is Professor Annalise Jeanzin. She is a former Deputy Vice Chancellor from Durban University, an Chief Executive Officer from the South African Technology and Training Platform, with extensive research and outputs in research management and university management. Her focus and her research interest has always been and continues to be software design and development, but her extensive collaborative work with industry and with companies and with academia put her at the forefront of understanding what trends might look like with regards to global development. We are also joined today by Professor Aziel Jesus Cortez Captillo from Tec Monterrey in Mexico. He is the National Director of Engineering and Innovation Development, and he is a leading research professor in innovation and technology, focusing on multidisciplinary experience with regards to early technology entrepreneurship, moving from TR1 to TRL5. In addition, we are joined by an outstanding researcher, Dr. Kunjan Mansi from the University of the West Indies. Her background and research interests span from business intelligence, machine learning, data management and data mining, decision-making support, all the way from systems knowledge management and knowledge management of systems and technology. Her work and contribution is most recognized within the domains in Jamaica of healthcare and crime. With this, I would like to now introduce our first presenter, Professor Michael Taylor. I'm going to welcome Professor Taylor to now take the scene. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for the welcome, Professor Morris. It is a pleasure to be here and to be speaking at this Global Securities Conference. Um, so I say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all who are present. Today, I want to give a very quick presentation about climate change. Now, climate change represents one of the gravest threats to humanity, but I want to do so looking on climate change through a SIDS lens. And my presentation is entitled Climate Change Through a SIDS Lens, How You and I Factor In. Let me try to explain. So, as you have heard, I am a climate scientist from the Caribbean, and I do look on how climate change manifests itself in small island developing states. The Caribbean is made up largely of small island developing states, which we call SIDS. And I want to begin by setting a context or creating an argument that SIDS have a very unique context, especially when it comes to climate change. And that is what merits us having to study it. And what I really want to do is suggest that if you go and you will recognize that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, has just concluded its sixth cycle of reports, a series of fantastic reports that pick up the latest science, then what happens when you read those IPCC reports through a SIDS lens? And what do I mean by a SIDS lens? Through the context, that unique context that SIDS have. What are the emerging messages, especially for SIDS, but also for the wider global community? What are the research themes that emerge? What becomes important? So that's what I want to do. I really want to read the latest climate science, but through a SIDS lens, because I'm arguing that SIDS have a very unique context. Well, if I'm making that argument, what is this SIDS context? Allow me to create what I would call a SIDS profile, SIDS being the small island developing states, as I've said. The SIDS profile looks something like this. SIDS are small, isolated, and exposed. So a large percentage of the population of SIDS live within a few kilometers of the coast. And so life takes place largely on the coast, and lots of important infrastructure, towns, cities, everything that guarantees production, our economic survival takes place on the coast. But we are isolated and exposed. The Caribbean, for example, is situated in the Hurricane Alley. And so we are exposed to extreme weather, but we are isolated because we need air or ocean lift to move between. Seeds are also, in addition to being small, isolated, and exposed, generally flat or many with low-lying mountainous interiors. Again, it limits where life can occur, and life can occur where it is most climate sensitive. Seeds are natural resource dependent, so they have an intimate relationship with the natural resources. So, example, the oceans for fisheries, or for water, rain for water systems, or rain for agriculture. And a lot of the economy depends on the natural resources and simply depends on favorable climate. And then seeds, because most of them are in tropical belts, have an outdoor existence. Daily life is structured to take advantage of the ambient conditions. Put another way, what we are suggesting then is that SIDS have this extreme climate sensitivity. Put all of that together, and what you see is a strong, intimate, and direct link between climate and daily existence, for intimate link with economies, with standards of living, and certainly with quality and way of life. Because SIDS have this direct extreme climate sensitivity, it is the reason why SIDS put on the table that we must advocate for limiting global warming. And many of you will be familiar with the phrase 1.5 to stay alive. A simple way to say we must limit global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees if life in SIDS and other developing countries is to be viable in the future. That then is the lens that I am arguing we want to see climate change through, or to read all of these IPCC reports through. The SIDS lens is a departure lens. What do I mean? It means we read them through the context of what would happen if, especially to life in SIDS, the security of life in SIDS, should climate change depart, or should climate depart and we exceed the global thresholds that are now on the table, 1.5 degree being what the SIDS have argued for. So quickly going back then, what am I doing in this talk? There is a lot of climate science information, especially in those IPCC reports. IPCC has just completed its sixth assessment cycle, produced three special reports, three assessment reports looking on the physical science, the impacts and adaptation and mitigation, and just in March of this year released its sixth assessment report. Those assessment reports have lots of science messages and lots of diagrams to accompany them. So, for example, on the left, you see how global warming has taken place from 1850 to present. And you get the clear message that we are at 1.1 degrees warming already. On the right, you see the projections of global warming under various scenarios. And you see the global warming of 1.5 and 2 will be exceeded during the 21st century. And you get the clear message that we are heading for 2 degrees or more. This talk very quickly will say, well, if I read these reports, what are the science messages that must come through if I read them through a climate departure lens or a SIDS lens, which says 1.5 must be the threshold to stay alive? What are the key messages that emerge when they are read through this Caribbean lens? I want to argue that there are 4 messages when you read the science from a climate departure lens or a SIDS lens, 4 you and I messages that emerge. And that's what I would like to leave with you for the remainder of this talk. Very quickly then, what then is message number 1? Key message number 1 when you read the science through the SIDS lens is that when the climate departs, the unprecedented becomes inescapable. When the climate departs, the unprecedented becomes inescapable. What on earth do I mean? Well, the truth is that when you read those climate IPCC reports, for example, if you go to the one that is the summary of the physical impact, it makes a statement like this: with every additional increment of global warming, changes in extremes continue to become larger, and they make that with high confidence. And what that means is, for example, if we look on hot temperature extremes over the globe, over land, and we look on the left side of that diagram, the 1 in 10-year event that used to occur once in pre-industrial times, or is now occurring 2.8 times in the present, that will significantly multiply when climate departs. So 4.3 times if we reach 1.5 degrees, and 5.6 times if we reach 2 degrees, and you get the picture. And so you see that what used to be something that may have occurred once in our lifetime, or maybe not at all, now becomes inescapable. You get the same picture if you look on, for example, the 1 in 50-year heat extreme, which is now occurring 4.8 times, which will occur six times more in the future for 1.5, and you see it ramping up for the 50-year event. And it doesn't matter if you want to change the variable you are looking on. If you look on the heavy precipitation event, the same picture emerges. What used to occur once will now occur multiple times, and the unprecedented becomes almost the norm, or certainly inescapable. And you get it if you look on agriculture and ecological drought. The point I think that comes across then very clearly is that what you have now is more heat waves, higher frequency of drought, heavy rainfall events, more intense events like hurricanes, which we see every day, and higher sea levels. And you get the kind of statement that with further warming, every region is projected to increasingly experience concurrent and multiple changes in climate impact drivers. The clear picture in the unprecedented becoming inescapable is the entrenchment of a multi hazard era. This is true of the Caribbean, and what is needed in the Caribbean is research to support it. But the research we have done so far supports this. So for the Caribbean, even hotter times are ahead. That's what our research shows, where 30 to 98% of days annually will be hot by the end of the current century. Hot, where hot is measured by current standards. Even drier conditions are ahead. And so you will look on the graph in the lower left hand corner and you see it becoming increasingly brown as you pass 1.5, 2, 3, 4. And what you learn is that we'll have shorter rainy season and less rains. We see more intense extremes. So as we go throughout the century, 17% of our time will be spent in one category of drought, going up to 34%. And we see even higher sea levels. The truth is, for the Caribbean, we see this entrenchment of a multi hazard climate regime marked by changes outside of our present lived experience or within the realm of the unprecedented. The message is clear. When read through a departure lens, the unprecedented becomes inescapable. Why does this at all become important, and how does it factor into global securities? Well, the truth is, we have seen unprecedented in the Caribbean. We know what unprecedented means. Unprecedented is 2017 when three Category 5 hurricanes traversed through the Caribbean. Or 2019 when Hurricane Dorian as a Category 5 stood still over the Bahamas. Or 2020 when we exhausted the names in the alphabet and we had more hurricanes than we had alphabetical names for. And for us, unprecedented means climate means unprecedented impacts. We are simply devastated when we meet unprecedented. And the truth is that what we see with when unprecedented begins to become inescapable is that, and quoting from the UNDP report, on average over time, countries in the Caribbean suffer yearly losses due to storm damages equivalent to 17% of their GDP. Or if we look on the IMF report, Caribbean countries experience frequencies of natural disasters with a high human and economic costs, way above other entities. And literally, we experience economic setback. What's the point I am making? The point I am making is this. Firstly, when the climate departs, or when you look at climate change science through a SIDS lens, the first key message that emerges is that when the climate departs, the unprecedented becomes inescapable. That is important for us because what happens then is development trajectories in the Caribbean and in SIDS are simply disrupted because of that extreme sensitivity to climate. That is why Dorian is a setback for the Bahamas when it happened in 2019 and 25% of the GDP was impacted. That's Irma, Antigua and Barbuda. All the development trajectories of SIDS are simply disrupted. So that's key message number one. When you view climate change through a SIDS lens, what happens? Well, a SIDS lens is a climate departure lens. And the climate departure lens says, when the climate departs, message number one, the unprecedented becomes inescapable. What would be message number two? Message number two would be this. When you view climate through a SIDS lens, when the climate departs, the untouched becomes imperiled. The untouched becomes imperiled. Let me try to explain this one. If you again go to those IPCC reports, they make statements like human-induced climate change include more frequent and intense extreme events, the unprecedented becoming inescapable, widespread adverse impacts, and related loss and damages. So we know already that climate change is causing adverse impacts, as I have shown for SIDS, and related loss and damages. And those impacts spread across everything: water availability and food production, health and well being, cities, changes in ecosystems, systems, and you can see the full realm. This particular diagram from the IPCC is interesting. In the top hand side, where it's red, you will notice that red, it represents adverse impacts for certain parts of the world. But red and hashed means adverse as well as potentially positive impacts. So you'll notice that for some parts of the world, climate change has both an adverse but also a positive impact. It is very interesting that if you look on the small island developing states, the hatching disappears. And what you get is that those impacts already to date are not evenly distributed, and that the most vulnerable feel the impacts more. For example, the small island developing states. What then do I mean? So climate change is already doing this. It's already impacting all aspects of our systems. What then does it mean by the untouched becomes in peril? Well, I want to make the argument that when you read through the SIDS lens, the IPCC makes statements like climate-related risks for natural and human systems are clearly higher if climate begins to depart than at present, though it will be lower than at 2 degrees. In other words, what's happening is simply that the future climate change is going to increase the severity of impacts across natural and human systems, and note the end, will increase regional differences. That differentiation across the globe, where the impacts are not evenly distributed, will increase. It will increase with increase the regional differences. So the IPCC reports give us diagrams that look on the risk of species loss. And what you can see is as you go from 1.5 to 2 to 3 to 4, the places which get darker and progressively purple happen to be those regions with those SIDS regions or those developing states. And so you not just get the same thing happening over and over again, you get expanded and new climate vulnerabilities. And it doesn't, so it's not just for biodiversity, it's also for heat humidity risks to human health. Look on the pattern again as the place warms, and so you see the increase, and you can see the differentiation according to regional differences. You see it also with food production, and you see it with fisheries yield, and the clear message comes across: it's expanded and it's new climate vulnerabilities. The 1.5 report of the IPCC, I think I like because it illustrates this with concrete, some of the concrete science. So we know that of the 105,000 species studied, 6% of insects, 8% of plants, 4% of vertebrates lose over half of their climatically determined geographic range at 1.5 degrees, but that multiplies at 2 degrees. And you see the effect whether you are looking on species on land or you go into the ocean, where, for example, coral reefs will decline by 70 to 90% at 1.5 degrees, but with larger losses greater than 99% at 2 degrees. You cannot miss the expansion and the creation of new climate vulnerable. What about the Caribbean? The research we are doing, which is necessary and much more needs to be done, suggests that, for example, biodiversity becomes impacted. That's a picture of Jamaica, and where becomes suitable for crops is the interior of the island. But the interior of the island is where we have our most sensitive biodiversity. That's among the new climate vulnerable. Outdoor workers for us. And remember, I talked about us having an outdoor existence. whether you're a tourism worker or a farmer or a security guard, they become impacted. Children and the elderly, increasingly health challenged. And for us, if we were to document the new climate vulnerable, the poor, the elderly, children, health challenged, outdoor workers, biodiversity, future generation, coastal dwellers, you see that the untouched become increasingly imperiled under expanded and new climate vulnerability. Again, the IPCC report, I think all of them make the point in various ways. They talk about regions that are disproportionately higher risk, and these include small island developing states. Critically, they talk about poverty and disadvantage being expected to decrease when the climate departs, when you get to 1.5 and even more when you get to 2 degrees. The message is clear. The disadvantaged become more disadvantaged. So when you look on climate change through a SIDS lens, what are the key messages? Well, if the first one is that the unprecedented becomes inescapable, and therefore development trajectories are clearly disrupted, especially for SIDS. The second one is that the untouched, things that were not yet vulnerable or things that are vulnerable become even more vulnerable. So the untouched becomes imperiled. And put another way, what we are suggesting is that the benefits that should accrue from development are denied. That's what happens when you read climate change through a SIDS lens. Very quickly then, as I know my time is running out, what's the third key message? I don't think I need to stay too long on this one because I think it's pretty clear. Not only will the unprecedented become inescapable and the untouched become imperiled, but I would like to argue that what happens is that the utopian becomes improbable. Let me quickly explain. One of the things that the world has signed on to is the Sustainable Development Goals. We know that there are 17 development goals, ranging from no poverty all the way through to things like life underwater, life on land, global security, global education, gender equality, etc. All of these goals have been written into, for example, SIDS national development plans. And so whether you look on Belize or you go to Jamaica's Vision 2030 or you go across the Barbados or Trinidad, the sustainable development goals are what we are aspiring for. They are our goals, especially for 2030. What climate change does, and the IPCC report makes it very clear, is that there will be adverse impacts from human-caused change, and those impacts will intensify. So whether you take water security and food production, that's clear from the IPCC report. Health and well-being, clear from the IPCC report. Cities, settlements, and infrastructure, clear. Ecosystems, we have spoken about that. And you get the statement that climate and non-climatic risk will increasingly interact so that they create compound and cascading risks that are more complex and difficult to manage. Put another way, if you wanted to think of which sustainable development goals that all of the SIDS have signed on to will be impacted, which will be impacted by climate change, then it's clear that almost all, the only one I haven't included perhaps is 13, climate action. All will be threatened by climate change. The simple truth, we will be in danger of not achieving the sustainable development goals. I want to suggest that we need the research in the Caribbean and the interdisciplinary research to bring this out. So far, we do know that at 1.5, for example, we'll have 40% less hydropower in Suriname, diminished agricultural productivity in Jamaica, inundation of coastal infrastructure across the region. Regional cost of damages will be 2 to 3 times higher, and certainly aridity will increase. All of this will impact those sustainable development goals, and you see that the aspiration becomes a futile one. So that third key message then, if you read climate change science through a SIDS lens, which is a departure lens, what do you get? Well, you get that when the climate departs, the unprecedented becomes inescapable, and development trajectories are disrupted. You get that when the climate departs, the untouched becomes imperiled. Those things that were not vulnerable before become vulnerable, and those that were vulnerable are more vulnerable and in a disproportionate way. So development benefits become denied. And certainly you get that the utopian, those goals that we are aspiring for, become improbable, and therefore the development goals get pushed further and further away, not by 2030. Finally, what happens when you read climate change through a SIDS lens? Yes, we get the unprecedented becomes inescapable, and the untouched becomes imperiled, and the utopian become improbable. But you get one more picture, and that picture suggests that when the climate departs, the urgent becomes immediate. The IPCC, in finishing its years of the sixth assessment cycle, had a press release on the 20th of March 2023, and it couldn't put it any clearer. Urgent climate action is needed to secure a livable future for all. Urgent climate action can secure a livable future for all. You cannot miss the urgency. What kind of climate action must be there? We know that it has to be a pursuit of a strong mitigation agenda. And again, the IPCC reports make that. They make the clear case that limiting warming to 1.5 or 2 degrees involves rapid, deep, and in most cases, immediate greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And you see from the diagram that the only way to get to 1.5 or even 2 degrees requires immediate, deep, rapid, sustained emissions reductions from the present going forward. Where we are headed to, that brown kind of line, horizontal line on the graph, does not cut it. And the national determined contributions, what we have agreed to as a globe, will not cut it. But we don't only need a strong mitigation agenda. We clearly also, well, for the Caribbean, sorry, definitely for us, we must be part of that strong mitigation agenda. And we need both the climate finance and the research to support our areas of mitigation, for they represent win-win. Those are energy, oceans, protection of our forestry, transportation, dealing with waste. It's clear. We know what to do, and we have no choice but to do it now. Not only do we need a strong mitigation agenda, but we need the pursuit of an unavoidable adaptation agenda. Again, if you read the reports, they make the case clear. Rapid and far-reaching transitions are needed across all sectors and systems to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. This will require significant upscaling of a wide portfolio of not just mitigation, but also adaptation options. Those adaptation options have to be across all areas of life, especially for SIDS, where I began by arguing are extremely climate sensitive. Climate sensitivity pervades every aspect of our life. We know what to do, and we have no choice but to do it now. And quickly ending, we need to pursue a scaled up research agenda. That is important, and that's this symposium. We need that interdisciplinary scaled up research agenda, especially for SIDS, because we have to ensure that the mitigation adaptation options we choose are contextual, that they fit the SIDS context. So they have to recognize the differences in physical, socioeconomic, and cultural realities. They certainly have to yield new innovation that is suited for the SIDS reality. They certainly have to integrate things like early warning, risk monitoring. They have to rethink sustainable technologies, propose new models of governance, leadership, and yes, finance, and establish and make clear priorities and co-benefits and trade-offs when you are pursuing these things. That's important and will require everybody across multiple disciplines. We know what to do. We have no choice but to do it now. We clearly have to pursue a structured education agenda that runs from formal curriculum takes into account indigenous knowledge, goes through workshops and trainings and symposia, and that's why this is important. And we have to pursue a deliberately collaborative agenda. The sustainability, the livable future depends on a collaboration across governments, international, but also between government, academia, private sector, community, and civil society. And you heard that in Prof. Morris's opening remarks. We know what we have to do, and there is no choice but to do it now. Resilience, then, especially for SIDS, when climate departs, depends on all of these things. And I think that is what the IPCC is picking up when it says climate resilient development integrates adaptation, mitigation, cooperation, etc. And they make it clear the choices and actions implemented in this decade will have impacts now and for thousands of years to come. We know what to do, and we have no choice but to do it now. So I end. When you read climate change science through a SIDS lens, a small island developing states lens, what you're doing is reading it through a departure lens. And that says, when the climate departs, what happens? Well, through a departure lens, it tells us that the unprecedented becomes inescapable. And for us, it means our development trajectories are disrupted. Our development is set back. Well, when the climate departs, the untouched becomes imperiled. New vulnerabilities emerge, and those who are already vulnerable become more vulnerable. The benefits we expect from development are simply denied, and denied in a disproportionate way where the most vulnerable experience the most impact. Well, the utopian becomes improbable. And what that means, those sustainable development goals that we're going after and put ambitious timelines to achieving them will be delayed. And finally, the urgent becomes immediate. What does that mean for me? It simply means this. Those things that we think are options for the development, like mitigation and reducing greenhouse emissions and adaptation and developing a robust contextual research environment, those are not options. Those are become demands because that's the only way we can have a livable and viable future. That's the threat of climate change, especially when you view it from a SIDS lens. Now, those are then the key messages. The key messages when you think about the SIDS proposition of 1.5 to stay alive, and you read the IPCC science through that lens, I think there is a lot of challenge for us, especially as we explore global securities and how to ensure a livable future. Thank you very much for listening.
Excellent. Thank you, Professor Taylor. The science messages are clear. The UIs are presented from a departure lens. The key things that stand out for me are unprecedented, untouched, utopia, urgent, inescapable, in peril, improbable, immediate. The need for an interdisciplinary response. Can I ask the audience to pose questions for Professor Taylor at the end? I will present these questions back to Professor Taylor for a more in-depth response. Thank you. Can I now introduce Professor Annalai Jordan to take the stage? Thank you.
Good afternoon from, I would say, a sunny South Africa, but it's an autumn South Africa. But also good morning and good evening to all of you across the world. And as we can see, our previous speaker really emphasized the urgency of research, and in the dilemma we said was the climate and the temperatures rising. So what I want to do from my side, it's also quite a serious issue, because the question that will be posed in the end is it's also about urgency. But because I'm a technologist and I enjoy technology, I decided to work on a lighter note. So when we look at the table of contents, what I want to focus on is technology. I want to look at the evolution of technology, and where we are now in the fourth industrial revolution, although we're already moving towards the fifth industrial revolution. But what I would like to focus on, because there are so many 4IR areas and disciplines that we can work on, but I wanted to focus today on the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, and look at emerging technologies and where do they fit in, because it's not fixed. There's a gray area where we move from the one technology or from the one revolution to the next revolution. And then interesting terms like the metaverse. And then the question that I pose at the end, is it a threat to humanity? And should we worry? So let's start. So the first thing is, I think we all know what is technology, but I thought let's just use it in our academic environment, our university environment. If we use scientific knowledge, and there's large definitions of what scientific means, it's for practical applications, because technology is there for us to use. Then it's in every area of our lives. We are flooded with technology and new technologies, and how do we keep on par with the rest of the world? So we use specific equipment involved, and I thought, let me give this robot as specific equipment, but it doesn't have to be so advanced. And then it can be simple or complex. And because I said we take it on a lighter note, if you look at the bottom left of the screen, it can be simple, like a normal telephone line, or it can be Wi-Fi. So it's a bit more complex. So when we go then from there and we look at the evolution of technology, we are aware that we went from the first industrial revolution now to call it the fourth industrial revolution. And in the 1700s, it was wonderful when the steam train was developed. And then we went to the second industrial revolution, where it was electricity mostly. And that already was wonderful. Then we went into the third industrial revolution, and I can say that I actually think I started there with my studies, moving forward, and connectivity was absolutely wonderful for us at that stage. It was awesome to click a button, even with these old computers you see on the screen, and realize, but now you can chat with someone else overseas at another institution in America or Jamaica or wherever, and we were so excited. It just took some time for the message to travel and return. And then we all are now at the fourth industrial revolution. And this is about connectivity, but more than just computers. Everything seems connected at this stage. But is it all? So let's continue. If we look at the top right corner, I think those of us who are old enough will remember the advancement in phones. And I could have added all the smartphones, but to put that in pictures will take up the entire screen. So when we look at the fourth industrial revolution, what is it? Can we put a definition to it? So there are many definitions, but I think the core is when we fuse digital, and I decided digital will be light blue just to play around with colors. Biological, I try to find a human color for us, and then our physical word. So it's really bringing together everything that exists at this stage on Earth. But then we utilize new technologies. It's growing all the time. And as I indicated, there's so many fields of study around for IR, and at many of our universities all over the world now, we're teaching artificial intelligence, cloud computing, robotics, 3D printing is amazing. Then the Internet of Things. When I first heard that word, I thought, now who on earth would want to talk about things, until I read this definition. And then advanced wireless technologies. And it is a disruption, an economic disruption. I based it on Africa at this stage because I live in Africa, but all over the world we have this economic disruption. So if I look at it in pictures, I like to have my definition, and then I like to have a picture in my mind. There it is. 4IR is also called industry. 4IR, because it's a connectivity of not just things in our home, but all over the world. Then when we look at 3 words, and I've seen it many times where we use digitization instead of digitalization, and then there's even digital transformation. And that also had the evolution from 3IR up to digital transformation. So digitization is simply we have something manual, a handwritten text, and now we convert it into digital. We can scan it in, we can type it in, but that's just digitize. When we get to digitalization, that's a whole process, and it's a total shifting where companies not only have their information digitized, but automated. And that's a process. And this is where I think in many instances data security started playing a role, because when we have all this, let me call it power in our hands in terms of connectivity, there's always the good and the bad. And there's a saying that the internet itself, everything technology, is not evil. It's what do we do with that? So there's the positive aspect, but there's always the warning as well. So 4IR goes beyond digitalization. It is about digital transformation. So when we look at digital transformation, it's a fundamental change. It's again this disruption, and it has to do with mostly with enterprises, also in our homes, but it's absolutely a new way of thinking. As has happened during the pandemic, we were forced to get out of our comfort zones and also to instill a new way of thinking. So it seems that with every revolution that we go forth, is there's industrial evolution. It should be a revolution, but it was an evolution as well. So when we go forth with that, it's a matter of, right, let us now define it and identify and zoom into a few areas. So the Internet of Things, because I'm working very much in terms of research on the Internet of Things information and models and frameworks. But again, what is the Internet of Things, IoT? In short, it bridges the gap, in this case, between the physical and the digital world. So where we as humans now need connectivity, and we use the digital technology available to us, and it starts with things. So it's called the Internet of Things. So when we look at it, there's a lot of things. And before we go deeper into the definitions, when we look at the Internet of Things, anything that we can connect is connected. But we have this device with us, and we can control our doorbell. We have chips in dogs that we put in when we adopt a dog or get a new dog, to trace them and track them. We have industry here. We have smart watches. It's cars linked to satellites to ensure that cars can be detected when they are stolen by the bad guys. So everything we can think of is connected. It's digitalization, but there's more than just the Internet of Things. So when we look at this definition of the Internet of Things, the things are the physical objects, and they have sensors, software, technologies, whatever in to connect us via systems. And that means we have ranges from ordinary household objects. Now, microwaves and television, we use a remote for television. We have a router that takes us outside the house while we are still connected online. We can visit anyone in the world using digital connectivity, and then sophisticated tools that we have in organizations. So just again, this word things was very fascinating. It fascinated me greatly. And a thing is still an inanimate object. It's a thing. There's no life in it in terms of human intelligence. It's hardware devices. And as I said, we have our typical devices at home, and there's sensors connected to it. And then from there, it can, via routers, fiber, be directed. And the word cloud computing is one of the main things of the Internet of Things connectivity. We can see for ourselves now we have our Google Drives, and Microsoft gives us cloud storage to save our information in. So we can, large volumes of data can be saved in the cloud, more than the capacity we have on our computers. And then again, of course, the disadvantage, the challenge, I would say, is to take these and protect all of our information in the cloud. How safe is it really? So it's always those questions. We have the good things, but is it protected? So when we look at universities or higher education, basic education, we look at a connected classroom. And many of us already have that. This is where the digital transformation in education started happening. It's a physical and a philosophical change, because as new technology came in, like Blackboard that we use, we also had to change the way we develop our curricula, our courses, to meet the ever-growing demand of students and faculty and campus. And we have to create a learning environment where everything connects. If we have our students coming into the classroom and we tell them, put away everything, put away your cell phones, put away, they're still trying to connect if we don't look at that and ensure. So it bridges the digital divide. It's collaborative, it's interactive, and it personalizes our experiences. And I think learning can be made much more interesting now with this digital transformation. So if we look at how the cloud is set to revolutionize higher education, and it's happening already at so many places. We have our cloud computing. We have something called a cloud campus, which many of us have because our campuses are distributed all over the country. With that, e-learning was also, let me say, forced upon us with the pandemic because there was hard lockdowns. We had all over the world hard lockdowns. Here in South Africa, we had absolutely very, very strict lockdowns. And in order for education to continue and for students to don't lose the year that they registered, we had to go to e-learning. But because we have done that, we also started looking at making it the best possible way because the pandemic, although it's still not over, the largest part we believe is over, but it was long enough to disrupt the classroom so much that we had to start thinking more than just the Internet of Things. So if we look at the typical Internet of Things, let me go that way. And let me see if I click on this. It should grow larger, but I think, there it is. So if we look at the Internet of Things, again, in terms of pictures, we have so many fields of expertise happening. Smart agriculture, our previous speaker was presenting about climate change and that influences agriculture. Supply chains become more automated. Students now do research on optimizing supply chains. Everything is called smart. A smart home, smart manufacturing, smart cities, smart grid, smart healthcare, smart transportation, smart wearables. And I just love the word smart because with smart, it means technology continues to advance. So I decided to look at one of those fields and I thought I saw something very, very interesting. And smart cities are, of course, as we see here on the right-hand side, across the world, different cities are in different stages of becoming smart. And the definition is where traditional networks and services are made more efficient and there's digital solutions. And it is linked to make it better for the inhabitants and for the business. So when we look at this video, oops, let me go forward again. And this video needs to play. Let me see if I can let it play. And it must go, move a little bit on. Yes. This was, there it is. It is called Panios Teriat, and we can listen to what he says.
It will sprawl 550 meters long and 610 meters wide, which is way bigger than the wonder of the seas. It will be so big that you will have the possibility to land on it with a flying car or a type of flying taxi drone. And better, why not a real private jet, which are way bigger than helicopters? And to add to the magic, why not a private house to live like a king during this beautiful travel? You will feel like you own your own mansion with all the amenities. The wings of the mega yacht, which are reserved for private houses and hotels, can remind us Dubai's Palm Island. After all, Dubai's Palm Islands are full of luxury houses and hotels. According to Lazzarini, the Italian architect behind the project, there will be space for shopping malls, parks, and even ports for smaller ships to welcome guests there in style. And style there will be there, given that it's shaped like a terra turtle. And ecologists don't need to complain because the wings will gain energy from the breaking of the waves and Panios will cruise perpetually without emissions around the planet Earth seas. Further, the rooftop area is full of solar panels, which provide part of the required clean energy to...
Brilliant. And what they also said, but I'm not playing the entire clip for you, is 60,000 people can live in this city. And it is from Saudi Arabia. It will be a $8 billion floating city. So that is really, it's a mega project, which was just very interesting for me. So we looked at our generations. We look at the Internet of Things, and I so love this IoT emblem for the Internet of Things. Then we know that the Internet of Things, it doesn't exist just all on its own, because there are words like big data, artificial intelligence. It's so many things. We call it the Internet of Things. There's so many things that we can connect to the Internet as it stands now. But again, there's dangers. There's people warning, do not connect the Internet of Things and AI. Don't merge them, don't fuse them. But let's go and have a look at artificial intelligence for creating the future. The definition I have here, because I try to keep the definitions as short and sweet as possible, it is many technologies working together. So the technologies are the blue again, to enable machines to do human-like things, to learn with human-like levels of intelligence. And here we see to sense, to comprehend, to act, and to learn. And while the machines do perform tasks better than human, we do need this human-machine collaboration. We know the internet or computers can process things so much faster than we can, but the intelligence behind it, we can say, stop all the intelligence now, the world will not listen. So we have to look at how are we going to work with the artificial intelligence and how are we going to build security in it. At this stage, we hear so many people saying that robots will take over the world, and we will listen now to a very high esteemed researcher worldwide about what he says about will the machines take over or not. But at this stage, it's still, and it needs to be an extension of human capabilities. So we have to control these robots. So let's look at our AI applications. We have now manufacturing robots, and we see that all over the world. We have smart assistants, and I know in Asia, Sophia, the top one of the two, was developed, created a few years ago already. And we have in America, I know we have Siri and Alexa. And then the UK started in February 2021 with Amica. And the project was to make Amica as much human-like, approachable to humans as possible. And we will have a look now at Amica. Then we have healthcare management, which is absolutely brilliant. And I think there will be a presentation tomorrow about that. Self-driving cars. I had a student who actually looked at driving a car, not the Tesla way, but using the Internet of Things to move a car forward. And he built a prototype. And it was actually amazing to see that this prototype worked. Augmented travel, AI augmented travel. We can sit in our lounges if we feel we want to and put this augmented device over our eyes, and then we will be in this virtual world and experience how it feels to walk in Venice. Whether we will really experience that, I do not know, but there is already augmented travel. Then we have virtual travel assistants that does the whole travel process for us. Flights, books, checking, we do quite a lot of that already. And then social media monitoring, and that is where data mining, big data, And these types of research come in because of the cloud storage with all these data. Then artificial intelligence, the artificial intelligence of things. So now we have AI combined with Internet of Things, and it's really a thing. It really exists, the artificial intelligence of things. So it combines, as we know, artificial intelligence with the Internet of Things. And the whole idea is to improve human-machine interactions and the data management and analytics, as I said, with the big data. So it's already combined AI and IoT, and it's called the artificial intelligence of things. So we cannot really say to the world, stop that. So what it really means, if we again look in pictures, we have programmable intelligence, and it's devices like robot twin able to learn and reason and think like humans. Then we have networks 5G, and many of us already read or saw YouTube videos or in the newspapers, but it's all over the world, that 5G, there are many people who say 5G is dangerous. When they live next to a 5G tower, they become ill. So there's a lot of controversy around that, but these advancements will continue to happen. So what should we do? And then again, it's the big data. So it is this whole intelligent network able to do so much processing all by itself, but we're still there to pull the plug in the end. And it is seamless communication. So the word used there is unleashing the power of data faster and better than ever. And yes, it did unleash the power of that. So emerging technologies. Emerging technologies fall under 4IR, but it's emerging so fast that we already go towards 5IR. So it can be a new technology, something totally new that comes up. It can be a continuous development of an existing technology. These are just the definitions of emerging technologies. It can be the technology that are currently being developed or in development, and it continuously happen. And then we have technologies expected to available within the next 5 to 10 years. And some of these actually became available before the 5 years were over. And the whole idea of emerging technology, so it's new. It's all this new, advanced, powerful technologies that is expected to create significant social and economic effects. So if we look at examples of emerging technologies, first of all, again, we see 5G. Then we see the wearable devices and drones that are being researched much now at universities by postgraduate students. We have our medical technologies where some of the specialists and those surgeons who do operations say it's so much easier for them now because of the technology to understand what happens in the human body and to operate on. And then for these medical technologies, we know there are prostheses where it's legs and arms and hands, but we will see now with Amica how this medical or how this technology actually advanced. It's absolutely amazing. Then we have this Google Glass where we can put like contact lenses in our eyes, and you can, and people already have done that a few years ago, and when they blink, they take a picture of spying devices, a lot of this. And then we know what we can all do with our smartphones. So if we quickly look at our AI applications and we look at meta-humanism. I was always wondering, what is a meta-human? So on the left-hand side, if we look at this, if we play this video.
Can you speak in Greek? Okay,
Look
let's
at the
see.
avatar, amazing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This is a short clip posted by the Feeding Wolves channel, showing a metahuman speaking in Greek. It
There you are.
was
And
made in
then if we
Unreal
look
Engine,
at the,
using the Faceware Mark IV to record face.
we can look at the futuristic 3D billboard, and we can look through at this one. It's amazing. It's only 3D. It's a 3D. You have to obviously stand at a specific angle to be able to see that 3D emerges. But look at it. Look at the billboards. I had quite some time. I enjoyed it so much to look at all these billboards, and I thought, can it be 3D? This is a building. And just look at this, and it's all 3D. And suddenly, look at that. It's just amazing. There were so many billboards that I wanted to show to you, and I thought, let me just get a few of them. And then if we go to the next one, this is Amica on the left, but let's first look at Boston Dynamics in the States, training a robot. And I thought there is a clip of this robot absolutely successful. But I thought if we look at this short clip through, I think it's almost also 30 seconds, it's not always sunshine and roses, as you will see. Some of the robots succeed, some of them don't. So these are all the trial runs. That robot is now working brilliantly, but training a robot, you have to train a robot. And with this job, the robot was absolutely successful. And look at the drones flying there in between. But this one just off balance, and there it went. And I just thought, ooh, ouch, ooh. And then I realized, okay, it's a robot. The robot won't feel hurt or get hurt. But ooh, so it's not so easy to get a robot just to work. But look at this jump, ta-dam, at the end, and very successful. So let's look on the right-hand side and a video Amica, made in the UK. And she's doing movements. Look at the hands, look at the arms. And it was 11 months in the UK that they worked on Amica to get her to this.
It does exactly the reaction you think it would, like a human would. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I forgive you. Thank you. Have a wonderful time in Vegas.
And Amica got so much attention when she went to the States. There you are. So now we are at the 5th Industrial Revolution. And how does it differ from the 4th Industrial Revolution? So I thought, let me do the 5th Industrial Revolution now in purple. That's the highest color of the rankings. And it shows us, or the definition of 5IR is harmonious human-machine collaborations. And the focus is on the well-being of the multiple stakeholders, and it paves the way for a revolution in thinking about leveraging human-machine collaborations for greater societal well-being. So what does it mean? What is the difference? I think the main summary we can get from this is trust. Do we trust this technology? Can we build in fail-safe switches before the robots take over the world, or this technology takes over the world? Then, as part of 5IR, it's already there, it's already defined, the metaverse. As I was astonished with Internet of Things and big data, and I didn't think it was scientific terms until I realized, but it was. Same with the metaverse. Now, with the metaverse, we imagine a virtual world, and we can have this submersive technology that we place on our heads and our eyes, and we do all these things. We live, we work, we shop, we learn, we interact with each other from the comfort of our couches. If we want to, I don't know how much weight we will gain in the physical world. But in this world, the computer screens, and not just the computer screens, the things, the technological things, connect to a World Wide Web of information. So our computer screens and the technology we wear, it become portals to a 3D virtual realm. And if I say 3D, it's three-dimensional, but we know there's already games where people go into this games. But the metaverse is not just one thing. It's not just the World Wide Web. There are so many companies working on developing their own metaverse. So it's palpable, like real life, just bigger and better, they say. So we will have to experience that. But in terms of education, just think how wonderful it would be if we can take a curriculum or we can take a course and go into the metaverse and teach in the metaverse, and everyone is learning in the metaverse. I've also seen a video where they said we will be able to attend live concerts in the metaverse and we will feel as if we are there. So yeah, looking forward to experience this. So Facebook, and I've read and I've seen YouTube videos where it says Facebook is not very successful. So I thought, oh, there goes the metaverse. But then I realized that there are so many other large companies, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, Qualcomm, they're also investing billions and billions into this concept. So if the one metaverse fails, there are others. And then the idea is whether you enter through Google or Microsoft, in the end, you should be able to live, commute across these metaverses on the World Wide Web. So these metaverses will have to eventually link with each other. That's major things to think of, but it's very exciting. Then e-commerce is expected to dominate the engine. So the metaverse engine. So with e-commerce, you actually take your money with you and then you go shopping online in the metaverse and you look at the price of each thing on the shelves, price of whatever we would want to buy. And we might buy it like we do now with our online purchases, and it will be delivered to our doorstep, but we will see, we will feel, we will experience what it costs. So it can give us a real live shopping experience from our couches. And as we know, as I explained here, that the metaverse is shaping up as a multiverse, so a multitude of metaverses, and there should be connectivity between them. So here we get to our AI threats to humanity. And when I wanted to get a picture of AI threats to humanity, I actually got this green picture on the right-hand side. So I thought, okay, the threats will be green color-coded. So what are the main, there are many threats, but what are the main threats? The potential for AI to replace human workers. So jobs will become automated jobs. It will become redundant to hire people to work, and it can be again an economic disruption. So that's something to think about. The potential for AI to be misused, we know that cyber attacks developing dangerous weapons. And then this one is the biggest fear, I think, that AI can become smarter than humans and ultimately decide that it does not need us all by themselves. And then this thread is called the singularity. So whenever we see the word, are we moving towards singularity? Well, we're moving towards singularity. And so many people tell us that. So singularity, and there's different words for different disciplines, but with technology, singularity describes our hypothetical future, which maybe might not be too far in the future, where technological growth is out of control and irreversible. So it's moving to singularity, big problems, irreversible. And it will radically and unpredictably transform our reality. So entrepreneurs, and we've seen Elon Musk a lot that warned us about the advances of AI and the innovations, and it's specifically genetics, robotics, nanotechnology. And all of these concerns is already during the first half of our 21st century. So the second last slide, should we worry? Let's listen to what this person tells us. I think if I click, will it work?
Right now, robots have the intelligence of a cockroach, but in the coming years, our robots will be as smart as a mouse, then maybe as smart as a rabbit. If we're lucky, maybe as smart as a cat or a dog. And by the end of the century, who knows for sure, our robots will be probably as smart as a monkey. Now, at that point, of course, they could be dangerous. So I think that in the future, we'll have to put a chip in their brain to shut them off once our robots have murderous thoughts. But that's in 100 years. In 200 years, the robots will be smart enough to remove that fail-safe chip in their brain. And then, watch out. At that point, I think rather than compete with our robots, we should merge with them. We should become part cybernetic.
And this is what our famous scientist says. Do we want to become cybernetic? Do we want to become part of that? I think the good thing from this, if we listen to our scientist, he says that only in 100 years we will have to put a fail-safe chip in, and then in 200 years it's humanity will not exist anymore. I think that's why Elon Musk wants us to go to Mars and go and live there, and wherever in the universe he wants to save humanity. Then something very interesting. This is just tongue in the cheek because this is the last slide. This is called a stereogram. As a child, I had this, it was books that were published, and we purchased these books full of these stereograms. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate to you, but if you put you can somehow perhaps take a picture of the screen or something, but if you put your face to the screen and your nose to the screen, and I've done it on my mobile phone, so instead of me moving to the screen, I just had a picture of this on my mobile phone, and then I put the phone right in front of my eyes, so everything's blurry. Then you focus on one point, but you have to continue focusing on that point and slowly move this figure away from you, and then you will see in 3D. So those of you who are interested and perhaps take a picture of the screen, it's really a plane. It's a plane flying if you see it in 3D. And the moment that 3D comes into position, and no one can teach you how or tell you what, this is the way that I do it and it works, because I tried staring at the screen and I was staring and nothing happened until I put it right in front of my eyes and moved it away. That's 3D. Now this already existed for very long, but it's still fascinating for me to play around with this 3D. And this one is apparently a more difficult one, which I can also see. It's like a house or a tent, and the more you look into it. But if you blink your eyes, it might be that you lose the focus and have to start again. But I've managed to be able to blink my eyes fast and still see this picture. So this is just something nice that I love playing around, because technology, 3D, and all these things are just very exciting for me. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Professor Lisa-Dionne. For me, it spurs such interesting thoughts, the presentation. For example, understanding that simplicity can be complex and complexity can be simple. Also, understanding that there is a bridge between the gap between points of connectivity. The interesting thing for me was actually looking at the difference between AI and the Internet of Things. And as somebody that sits in the University of Leeds within the School of Design, Robotics and Optimization, understanding AI, the point of it, to sense, to comprehend, to act and to learn, and how that can help with some of the global challenges that we experience now and in the future. From the perspective of merging AI and the Internet of Things, meta-humanization, futurism, and looking forward to harmonization and the harmonious interlinking between human and machine, and what that interaction of collaboration and well-being might look like. Thank you. I ask the audience again to consider questions for Professor Lisa-Dionne. Now, I would like to introduce Professor Aziel Capetillo. Thank you.
Can you see my screen? All right, okay. So I'm going to start presenting. Here's about a bit about me. And here it's going. So my topic is about innovation in the sense of the security, environment, climate change. And I was giving this presentation recently to a company in Argentina. We were exploring the issues of environmental climate change and how cities are suffering from the shortage of certain resources, and specifically industrial or industrial advanced cities are struggling a lot. And I'm going to talk about the case in Mexico. And I started this presentation. I wanted to show this because it's quite interesting. If you have heard about Austin in Texas, they have this motto of keep Austin weird. And they've been promoting this for a few years now. And they say, like, let's make Austin very weird and this spark of creativity and so on. And this has created a mood in the city, and it's been attracting a lot of young people, a lot of companies, some technical activities. And right now, for example, if we look at the global top 25 innovation and talent concentration cities, we can see Austin is getting there. Is the number 19 here in the innovation cities. And I think talent concentration, they were somewhere around here as well. Oh, I cannot see them. Oh, it's not here. Well, but they are growing they're being recognized as an innovation city. And oh, here it is the number 8 in talent concentration. So they've been attracting this new talent to the city. And there is an idea that is becoming quite popular right now about the purpose of organization. And there is this exponential organization framework in which one of the main topics or one of the main components of this exponential organization is the purpose, the massive transformation purpose. What are we going to do and how are we going to change, or how are we going to support the environment or the problems facing our region, our communities. And we can see as well cases in which this purpose is not followed. I'm going to go back. We can see cases not follow. It can have dire consequences. Like recently, if you were checking the news about Twitter and so on, how many people left Twitter just because they'd been the purpose of the new owner, and they were saying, I want to support Twitter, free speech, but it needs to have a purpose, it needs to be controlled and so on. And then it has Twitter got a new owner, and the new owner had that radical different ideas, and a lot of people just left the companies because they were not aligned with those ideas. So this is an example of how important purpose is becoming in any action an organization takes, and this can be translated as well to the actions the government takes, the action that the region takes. So a good purpose can help us advance a place like, I'm going to go back here. Just going to go back here to this. Okay, yeah. So a good purpose in a city, in a local region, can have an impact like we are seeing in Austin, is advancing in innovation. And if you go to check some of the innovative companies like Kickstarter, Tesla, Google, Alibaba, Walmart, they all are trying to promote a purpose that is bigger than themselves. So, for example, Google, the idea of Google now is Alphabet, right? But Google says to organize the world's information and to make it universally accessible and useful. So it's not just a web search; it's how can we make information available and useful for anyone to help him in his endeavor. Alibaba is how to make it easy to do business anywhere. Kickstarter, how to bring creative projects to life. Tesla, for example, to accelerate the advent of sustainable transport by bringing compelling mass market electric cars to the market as soon as possible. So this purpose pushed organizations not just to look for profitability, but it also opens the door for innovation because they are trying to solve a problem, and that problem goes beyond one single product. So we used to have the triple bottom line, or the 3 Ps of sustainability, which is profit, people, and planet. And well, the idea is that if you want to support the sustainability, you need to promote a project that is good for the planet, of course, that is good for the people, and that it generates enough profit for it to continue operating and continue providing that good for the people and the planet. And right now, this triple bottom line is advancing to a 4th one, which is the purpose. So what is the purpose of the organization? How do we support people? How do we support the planet? And how do we make a profit out of it for the organization to continue working? So we want organizations that have this ingrained in its business model so they can continue operating. So now I'm going to move to the topic of sustainable innovation challenges. And well, there is a driver of innovation that climate change has been pushing a lot of innovation, and we can have impact in air pollution, water pollution, energy, housing, food, and so on. And I'm going to focus on water pollution. And I want to tell you about the case of Monterrey, Mexico. So to put you in the context of Monterrey is a city in Mexico. Is considered the 2nd or the 3rd largest city in Mexico. It has a population of over 5 million people. is one of the major economic hubs in Mexico. It provides over 8% of the country's GDP. So apart from the capital, which is Mexico City and has a population of 20 million people, Monterrey is the second major economic hub with a population that is a quarter of that of the capital. It has a massive industry of manufacturing, services, and trade. Is considered to have one of the highly educated and skilled workforce. Tec de Monterrey right now is ranked as the #1 university in Mexico, and there are over 20 universities in the local area in Monterrey, Mexico. And just to give you a context of the size of the industrial region, it was just announced at the beginning of last month that Tesla is going to install its bigger gigafactory to produce its newest car for the mass market here in Monterrey, Mexico, and it's going to be the biggest Tesla factory in the world. So this is just to give you a sense of the kind of city that we're talking about. Is one of the most important cities in Mexico. And in 2000, well, this is the Monterrey is located here. I don't know if you see my screen, but it's located here at the north of Mexico, and it's a semi-arid region. And in 2021, we suffer for water scarcity, pollution, and a big drop in all the northern region of Mexico. So in 2022, we experienced a severe water crisis. It was the worst drought in 80 years, and we only had 9% of the total capacity of dams and reservoirs available for use. So, for example, if you see the first picture, this was taken from Google satellite. If you see the first picture, it was in 2015, and this is a dam. And is the same area, but in 2022, and you can see how it's just empty. There is no water there anymore. It was a massive drought in the northern region, and this led to problems in the water supply. Many residents were receiving water just a few hours per week, and in some cases, they did not receive water at all in more than 3 weeks. The water scarcity affected the agricultural and industrial operations as well. There was a crisis in the community. We were just leaving the COVID crisis. Just the restrictions were left up just for a few weeks prior to this, and then we started this water crisis, and it felt like just one crisis after the other, and just non-stopping problems. For example, this is an idea that we started having this program from the government. So the city was divided into zones, and they were saying, when are these zones going to have water from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., 1 day a week? So, for example, zone 1, it was on Monday, zone 2, it was on Tuesday, zone 3 was on Wednesday, zone 4, it was on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it was a huge problem. Imagine the whole city was left without water for over 3 months, and we were living in this kind of schedule of having water just a few hours per day and trying to get water from a super center, from market, from Walmart, things like that. And it created health problems, and it created as well a logistic problems from all the population. So everything that was a normal endeavor for a day-to-day basis, like washing clothes, it became a massive undertaking because it had to be done in specific hours, and then people had to ask for time at work to be at home when there was water and so on. So it had a lot of problems. It conveyed a lot of problems in society. And then these problems, they started to create social problems as well. So these are actual pictures of people queuing to get water from water tanks that the government was provided in different areas in the city, and they were coming with their own buckets and their own gallons to fill up and then take back home. And then people started to have the idea that it was not a draw, it was that someone was stealing our water. And then the society started to look for who is the one stealing our water, who is the enemy that is taking our resources. And we as the society as well, universities, government, and so on, started to look at the problem in detail, and we started to get data around what was going on. And this is some of the information that we started realizing. So if you see this yellow line is the average water received per year, and it's historical from 1985 up to date 2021. And we had very good years of water during the last or the previous 15 years, like from 2000 to 2015. You can see almost every year was above the average. Here was this 2010 especially was a hurricane that actually destroyed part of the city, but we received a lot of water in that time. And we can see that there was a previous time of a draft from 2000, well, from 1994 up to 2000, and then we had good years previous to that. And then we start seeing a draft going on from 2016. Actually, it kind of started in 2014 because we were receiving less water. So we realized actually we are receiving much less water from just the natural resources. There is something going on, and this is attributed to climate change. And then another phenomena is that the population has been growing, and actually it doubled from the 1990s to 2020. So in 1990s, we were 3 million people in the city, and in 2020, we were 6 million people in the city. But if we look at the previous graph, we had the same water resources. So in 1990, when we had this drop, it was not as problematic as right now because it was half the population that we have in 2020, and it was the same hydraulic resources and reservoirs and so on. And the trend is telling us that this population is going to continue growing. So we expect the city is going to grow up to 10 millions in the next 10 years or less. So water is becoming a huge problem or a huge issue to solve in the city. Then we need to understand the problem a bit more and what's going on. So this is the distribution of water for consumption in the whole region in Monterrey. And we started, the society started to look for like who is responsible for this, and they started to look for industry. So let's look at the industry. How much water is the industry using for manufacturing goods? And then we started digging the data. We find out that, well, actually 76% of all water reservoirs is assigned for agriculture. 14% is assigned for public sector, and that public sector means potable water for the houses. 5% is used by industry and manufacturing processes and production as well, and 5% is used for electricity generation. So one of the first issues that happened at this time is that society started to demand industry to lower its water consumption. But this brings another kind of economic problem as well, because industry started to reduce the production schedule to use less water, but this started to reduce as well the workforce. So industry was not producing during the normal schedule, so they could not pay the workers because the workers were not working in those hours, so it could create an economical problem as well. So we realize, well, the 76% of water being used in agriculture, and that water is being used, it has a lot of subsidization or subsidies by the government, and agriculture has not had a technological impulse in the last 10, 15 years. So it's somehow inefficient working with not advanced technological methods. And then from that 14% that the public sector receives, or well, in general, actually, 6% of all the water is lost in leaks. 11% is lost in errors in measurements or is not well accounted for. Around 5.5% is not measured. So is someone taking just water that is not being measured, is taking it from the pipe somehow, is not being measured. 0.35% is because of reading errors, and a variety of issues is around 8.12%. So apart from the distribution that we can see here, the problem was that there is a problem in the operation. We're losing a lot of water because of lack of efficiency in the operation. Okay, so during this drawing, during this huge problem that we face in the city, some innovations started to appear. Some of them were introduced by the same population, or some of them made sense in this moment, in this specific time. For example, there is a startup company that is called Nube, and is here from Monterrey, Mexico, and they developed these systems that they produce water out of the moisture in the air, and generally they are really energy heavy, because basically it's a condenser, and this condenser needs to create a difference in temperature, and then that difference in temperature creates humidity, and they are not that really efficient. Actually, like in a day, if you have a very humid day with over 20-30% of humidity in the air, it can produce something like 40 liters of water in one day. But for example, this requires the energy is like 200 watts per hour. So it's like if you had huge lamps in your house connected all day long, and it was especially not very efficient during the drought because there was no rain, so there was no humidity in the air in that time in our city. So it was producing very, very little water, like 6 or 7 liters at most, one of these machines. They were quite expensive, like $1,000 for a household. But it was the only option, because the other option was just to have no water at all. So it became an option, even though it was expensive and non-efficient, because the alternative was not having water at all. And then some other solutions started to appear, for example, to reuse water. So they started, you could find these products being sold in social media like Facebook and so on. Some of them brought from China, and these are water containers that will take your water from the shower, so you could use them in some other appliances. And here is showing like the guy is taking a shower, it fills the water tanks, and then these tanks are being used for toilet and for cleaning and so on. And they are difficult to use. It's a lot of work to install, it's a lot of work to take them out and to be using them, but there was no alternative. It was the only way that you could have water for some other of the other normal activities that you will be using. And then this kind of works started to become available as well, or very popular by local craftsmen. And what they were doing is to connect pipe systems to start reusing or recirculating water from different appliances. So here is the washer machine, and then the washer machine, instead of throwing the water in this kind of old washer machine, they used to throw the water out. Now they are using it or recovering in a tank, and then this tank will be used to clean the house or to some other purposes. But these installations started to appear, or people, craftsmen, offering their services to go to your house and see how could they recover water from your day-to-day activities, and they create that custom-made application. So these are just examples that show us that there is an opportunity for innovation, and the society demands solutions, and they have already found a few paths of solution. However, they are not really efficient. But this tells us that there is an opportunity. There is something there that we need to solve, or that we need organizations to help us solve these problems. And then from here, we can have levels of innovation. It's like if you push some buttons to try to make this work, and then one button will be human-centered design. So understanding the human needs, how can we come up with solutions that better address what the population needs and how the population actually operates in its day-to-day activities and interactions. And there is another button we can push, and is the technology button. So how can we solve these problems with technology? So for example, we were saying about the leaks in pipes and so on. So this could be detected with smart products, smart sensors that understand and detect when a leak is going on, and operate to reduce that leak as soon as possible. And this another button we can push is new business models. So how can we make these solutions available through new business models? Some of these solutions are capital heavy. I mean, they require a lot of capital for its installation, and the return of investment is 7 years or more. So how can we make these solutions available through new business models? And maybe those business models require a novel revenue model to be able to profit from that good that they are creating. And so we need, or we saw that the population needed robust solutions. So for example, not handcrafted solution by a craftsman coming to your house and putting some pipes together that are going to work for a few weeks or a few months, and then they are not going to be in an operating condition anymore. So we need robust solutions, something that can be used and can be used properly and is designed for that operation, and it can work for years if it's necessary. And we need these solutions to be replicated and scaled. So it cannot be just a pinpoint solution, but it needs to be replicated and scaled in an efficient manner. We need customized solutions. So most probably we saw these solutions were not the same for every user. So they need some customization. For some of them, the customization is small, but for many of them, they need very specific solution, but just for a niche market. And for this reason, we need organizations with a strong sense of purpose that are willing to solve these problems, even when the profitability at the beginning is not as impactful for the organization as it would be in the future. But this is an opportunity to create innovations that could become a differentiator in the future. So if an organization managed to come with solutions that are robust, that are customized, that are for niche market, and they manage to come with this solution in a way that they are profitable for the organization, and they organize efficiently to provide these solutions to society, this could become a differentiator for this organization in the future in comparison with their competitors. But to tackle the problem, first, this organization needs to have a very strong sense of purpose to be able to overcome the hurdles that they are going to face at the beginning of the challenge. So purpose is becoming a driving innovation force in companies. And what we're seeing is that if an organization adopts purpose as the guide for its endeavors, purpose starts to define the strategy of the organization. And strategy is what directs innovation. And ultimately, innovation is what leads change. So we want to create change, and that change can be accomplished if we promote the purpose to solve bigger problems than just taking a product to the market. And well, thank you. This is the presentation that I had prepared for today, and I wanted to say something. Last year was water, and then we had some glimpses of air pollution, and this year is water and air pollution. And I don't want to think what is going to happen next year. So because we have so much industry is creating pollution problems. This year there have been days with red alert in which they asked the population not to have activities outdoors because it could be dangerous for health or create health problems in the medium and long term. So we are starting to see these big problems being very pressing on society, and we need to take action. So last year is water. We know that this year water is going to be difficult because the drought is continuing, and the government is taking action. Companies are taking action. Now we have the red alert for air pollution. There are some people is starting to raise a flag that food supply is going to be a next issue, and energy is becoming another issue. The infrastructure for energy and the energy demand is increasing, the energy demand is increasing, and we don't have the right infrastructure for energy. So we need to start looking at those problems, and we need to start solving them today. But every year it's like adding one more block that we need to solve. So thanks a lot. This is the presentation I had prepared for you today, and I will be very happy to hear your comments and questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Professor Capitano. I'm mindful of the fact that we need business strategy for growth. Your presentation outlined the importance of innovation with purpose. Purpose being the reason for which something is created, done, for something or someone that exists. The challenge that you presented was clear. Sustainable innovation challenges in the context of Monterey water challenges. There were clear drivers: climate and increasing population. What was interesting from my perspective was understanding the purpose, responding to societal need through innovation, evaluation, and context. I can see that it's clear. There's a clear definition of human-centered design, the integration of technology 4.0 and maybe leading into 5.0 in the future, and also the need for new business models, where the levers are not just for profit, but innovation as a differentiator. Purpose, strategy, and innovation. Thank you. Can I now introduce Dr. Manse?
Good day, everyone. I hope you're seeing my slides, and I think they're working on them. So I'm saying good day because I think we are all in different time zones, so it just makes it very easy, simplicity in the world of complexity that we are living in. So today I'm going to be talking about in the world of AI and data and how secure are we. And I'll just, touch, I think we've heard a lot about AI already. So I'll just take it from the perspective of where AI has its, niche areas and where are we going with it. So one very important thing for us to see, even the previous speaker, spoke about that we need change. I need change. And every paradigm shift needs an adjustment. How easily we use a calculator nowadays. We don't even question it. But there was a time when there were teachers who were protesting against calculator use. I myself remember when I was asked in my physics lab when I was a undergraduate student to, instead of log tables, so instead of calculator, I had to use a log table, and I was really very upset with that. So the truth is that every paradigm shift needs an adjustment, and how are we going to adjust to it will really define us as a society as we go forward. Now, there's a lot of talk on AI. And I always find that it's really interesting if we go back to the history of AI. Because I often joke and say that if AI was a human, it would be retiring now. But right now, it seems to be taking a new life. So let's just go back to history of AI. AI was artificial intelligence, was actually coined by John McCarthy in 1956 in Dartmouth College. And he, along with Alan Turing actually precedes him from and Alan Newell, Simon, Minsky, they're all known as the founding fathers of AI. And Alan Turing had come up with this imitation game that, if you can make somebody believe that the computer is actually a human, then you win at the imitation game. And since then, there's been a Turing Prize. And John McCarthy went on to actually win that Turing Prize only in 1971, when he had actually coined the term in 1956. So AI really goes back a long way. But why has it taken on a life of its own is another story, because now we have so much data and we have so much computational power at our fingertips that it makes what was, the algorithms that were discussed in the 50s and that took on life in 60s and 1990s is that progression is really very beautiful if you were to see it. If just going back to it, the first, as you can see from 1950s, the Turing test, the imitation test, that you're trying to make, somebody believe that the response is from a human and a computer. You can't decide between them, who's who. And based on that, in 1964 was the first chatbot, Eliza. And those in the realm of AI, students in AI will always know what Eliza is. And then they say there was a long winter, an AI winter. And then boom, in 1997, there was something spectacular that happened, and that was Deep Blue, the IBM supercomputer that was able to play chess, and it had gone and defeated the Grandmaster. And it was using some simple algorithms. And if I was to say simple algorithms, I'm talking in terms of AI, alpha beta pruning and some searching, which is typically called the good old AI, old-fashioned AI. So that is what we were calling the old-fashioned AI. But it had gone on to win against a grand chess master. Then as we progress, in 2016 and 2017, there was another, a moment when AI researchers were now looking at that moment. And what was that moment? That was the moment of AlphaGo. A lot of AI seems to be based in games, and hence why that's, the whole world of, when people think of AI, they think of robotics and all high technology like that. Now, AlphaGo was Go is a board game where you have these black and white pebbles that you are turning, and very strategic game, I'm told. But what was so important about AlphaGo was that no longer it was using the good old-fashioned AI. It was now using neural networks, machine learning, and and that is what was suddenly people were looking and saying, we are using machine learning actually to go and win against a grandmaster in a Go competition. So that was a game changer for AI in 2017. And, if we were to now, there's a lot of fear or speculation, I should say, about the jobs and where are these jobs going. And in those days, when we were looking at the spectrum going from repetitive to creative, we were saying, anything that's repetitive, routine, even optimizing, AI can take over. But if it's a complex and creative, that's really not the job of AI. That is what people were talking about during that time. And now the question I ask you all, are these jobs really safe? The complex jobs, your creative jobs. And that is the bigger question that we as a society, need to really understand where AI is going and where it's taking us. So I had shown you the past of AI, AI history. Now let's take a look at present and future. And in this present and future, we are in 2023, so it's very much, present, but we don't know where the future actually takes us. But there were a lot of things that started happening from 2017, which was this monumental year. There was GPT, which GPT is actually not a new thing. It has been around from 2018. June 2018 is the first version of GPT. And then there were many versions of neural networks even creating music. So there is MuseNet. Then there is Jukebox in April 2020, and I'll show you some examples of Jukebox. And this was also created by OpenAI. So OpenAI has been there researching, working on these networks for a long time. And as we go along, there was GPT, various versions of GPT. And now in November 2022 is GPT-3 was launched. And then, soon after, in March 2023, GPT-4 has been launched. So where is this GPT timeline? And it has now really become the AI of present, and where the future is. I don't think any one of us can tell a lot about it. I think our, one of our speakers who spoke about AI did speak about robots and imagine the capabilities one can now create with merging all these technologies, because we are living in an interconnected Internet of Things world. Everything is connected. How we live, work, entertain, communicate with each other, everything is connected. So then, we are saying that, yes, these jobs are not safe. So why are they not safe? I thought it will be really useful for us to go and see why these jobs are not safe. So before we come to what, AI can create, why these jobs are not safe, especially the ones in the creative mode, I thought, let me tell you what AI can create. So AI can create music, AI can create art, and AI can create literature. Now that sounds a little scary, especially for those in the creative industries, because up to now we were only talking about repetitive routine work, and now we are talking about a creative world. And just to show you what AI can create, remember Jukebox, I told you, was launched in April 2020, which is about 3 years ago. And it was trained on 1.2 million songs using the raw audio data file itself. And it's a neural network-based architecture. And, its ability to create music is what I want to show you. We had done a research study in July 2021, in which we had created a lot of these music and artwork and literature, as you will see later during that time. So this was some music which was created by a student of mine, Matthew Stone. He's a PhD student in AI. And if you can just click on the country music for a bit.
All can know it's gonna be alright. Let the darkness fade away, and you gotta hear the same. Let the fire burn, just as long as I ain't there.
Okay, we can move on to the second one, which is actually a reggae music that was created by AI. No, can you go back, please? We can stop that. I don't know if you all were enjoying this music, but just the clarity between these two sounds also, the country music and the reggae. The country, if you realize, the lyrics were much clearer, and reggae, the lyrics were not that clear. And it's not the quality of the sound or the audio system suddenly, because it's the same system which was used to create them, and the same system is being used to play them. So now the question in our mind is that, country was very clear, reggae was not clear. And well, I think that goes back to the fact that we had initially said it was trained on 1.2 million songs. So was there enough sample of reggae in that? So the more data you have, the better it does. So in this case, in the case of Jukebox, it did very well for country. I think you could say that it sounded like people actually singing. You would wonder who the artist was. Even with reggae, you were trying to see the beats were all fine, but the clarity of sound, you weren't sure who it was, and you're trying to listen carefully. But in the end, you say, oh, maybe the sound quality is bad. But that's not so. It's really not been trained that well on the data, and hence it wasn't doing that well on reggae music. So moving on, just giving you an example of what AI can create, and we created this in July 2021. You know, art, meaning art is just such a beautiful way of expressing. And I think I became an artist on over this weekend. I used DALI, which is an AI chat GPT enabled. And I was able to create, just by giving some text prompt, I was able to create this beautiful artwork. And I don't know how many of you will disagree that I'm not an artist. And whether I should have the ability to actually copyright these paintings and say they are my paintings and use them in my illustration. So the one is a Jamaican beach, and one is, a market, not a market, like a street scene in a Jamaican small town. So these two were created by an AI agent. I used Bing to create them. So I became an artist overnight. This was again done in July 2021 when my student Matthew had created them. He had used VQ-GAN, which is a vector quantized generative adversarial network. And these two are basically two machine learning algorithms which work together. And they work together that you give in some text and it creates some art. I must tell you that the one in Usain Bolt in style of Picasso, actually, I tried to recreate it in DALI, but I wasn't doing well at all with it. Because remember, what I give as prompts, now if you give the same prompt, you will not get back the same response. So my creativity in creating a Bolt and Picasso style was not doing very well. I think Matthew had done better than me, and hence I wanted to show you, even these tools which have been there from, like few years ago. They have been 3-4 years ago. These tools have been around, and now suddenly the whole world is noticing because in the last few months, ChatGPT has 100 million users, something which took Google more than a year to actually get to that many number of users. So it is a very powerful world of technology that we are living in. And it's literature. Literature is something that we really, really thought that humans have that as their forte, and nobody can take it away from them. So, there was GPT-3, which was developed, then GPT-4, which was developed, and I really find this quite interesting because this is two poems by GPT-3 and GPT-4, and the prompt was basically given, run the race. And Miss Lou, for those who don't know who Miss Lou is, she's mother of Jamaican culture. She was a champion of Jamaican patois, and she was a Jamaican poetess. So a lot of poetry in patois is attributed to her, and it's very, very strong part of Jamaican culture. And if you were to ever be in Kingston and Gordon Town, you could go visit her bronze statue. Now, I'll try and, we had done this, the first one on the left, using GPT-3. And again, over the weekend, I said, let me try to do it with GPT-4 to see how well it has, it's now doing over another version. So if you will just excuse my trying to read patois, I will attempt. Run the race, run the race, run the race with me. Me not go tell you, say for me, if you run. But if you lose, you're going to get a flogging. You better run fast. You better run fast with me. Run like a donkey in the race. Run like a donkey in the race. It seemed like, some people may argue that it didn't sound like Miss Lou. But let's try the other one. And I would let the academics and culture decide as to how well it's now sounding like Miss Lou. Run the race, my boy. Run it good. Left all laziness and badness in the wood. Stretch your hand for the baton, hold it tight, and make sure you pass it on to the right. No look to the left and no look to the wrong. Run straight and true, make yourself strong. And when you reach the finish line, give thanks and sing a song. For those who are listening, I think you will agree that GPT-4 has done better than GPT-3. So where this technology is taking us, we really don't even know in the creative world where it's even taking us. Remember, first we were in the spectrum of repetitive tasks, and now we are in the spectrum, going to the other end of the spectrum of creative. And there's been a lot of debate on who owns the copyright, who owns a patent when AI is a creator. I think there was a case in 2021 in South Africa when an AI system was given a patent. But up to now, anything that has been related to copyright where AI has created something has been thrown out. And there was a recent case where a book had been put in US for copyright, and then the authors had gone and put on social media how some of the images that they had created were on ChatGPT, and there were issues with that application then. So we had done this, an awareness of in the industry, in the creative industry, especially in Jamaica in June 2021 as a research project. Implications of AI in action. A Jamaican perspective is what our study was, and we had representatives from these various sectors that you see on the right. We have them mostly from the creative industry, the legal industry, and the technology realm. And then look at the question we asked them: that do you know of examples of people profiting from AI generated music, art, and literature? And there was a large percentage, which is saying 80 odd percent, which is telling us no. So this is something we really need to focus on. We are, as the previous speaker has spoken about niche markets, we are a niche market where Jamaican culture is concerned. And with technology, which is not just knocking at our door, it is there. It's like, burst open inside. We should be mindful about what can we really do with these technologies in this space and have regulations in place. Now, the World Economic Forum speaks about, the future of jobs report. And I wanted to put the date here actually because October 2020, because this is before ChatGPT really took us on. That 85 million jobs may be displaced by a shift in the division of labor between humans and machines, while 97 million new roles may emerge. And hence the previous slide that we do not know how to monetize our creative industries in the space of AI. That's a question that, the countries that rely a lot on the cultural aspects need to focus on as to how are we really going to understand what these new emerging roles will be. So that's a security that we need to focus on as a small island state, which values its culture. Now the jobs at risk. This is a very crazy slide. This is recent labor trends, which was done on in 2023. Now, in February 2023, tech jobs, programmers, and I'm a programmer. I'm in the tech industry. I'm in the education industry. I feel as if in a few years' time, I may be gone. I may not even exist. But I think so far as we are seeing, yes, these chat GPTs are very good at writing programs. They are doing very well. But we have to understand that overnight this change will not happen. And hence, how are we evolving ourselves as a tech industry becomes important. The software development industry becomes important. It's very good at writing, doing probably smaller tasks, but we would need people who can design and then review. That will become important in the software industry. So maybe the senior jobs of a full stack developers may not be at risk, but yes, the entry programmers, the tech jobs, those could immediately be at risk, and we have to now see how we're going to evolve from that. And we have seen that evolution. We're coming from the days of assembly language. We then came the first GL, second GL, 4GL programming languages where the abstraction level was increasing. And now we are talking about prompt engineering. So all those are different methods that we will have to integrate in our learning processes. Media jobs, content creation. There's so much content that can be created automatically that Those are some of the jobs, again, media will have to examine to see if there is a tool which can do it for them. Then do they take that and modify it? What is it that they're going to do? In this case, most of the repetitive jobs, the paralegals, anything that requires drafting in the legal industry can also, can be done quite easily by using these AI tools. Market research analysts, data analysis is also possible with ChatGPTs. Teachers, I don't think it's a job at risk, but it's how we teach is what would change. I've just taken exactly what the people had listed, so I'm just listing them out. But I think teachers will be important. You need the you need that guidance in the learning process. Even in the AI learning world, they call it supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And supervised learning is assuming that there is someone who's guiding the learning process. So even if these AI tools need supervision, then when students are learning, I think they will always require some level of supervision, and hence teachers. But in what form are the teachers, making that learning happen will change. Financial analyst, personal advisors, these tools are already becoming our personal tools, so they can also give us financial advice given some local context. Your traders, graphic designers, and I think I've shown you some examples of graphic designers, how I became an artist overnight. Accountants and our customer service agents. These were the top 10 jobs which are at risk, and I would say that in my assessment, immediately they're not all going to be at a risk. But when we are losing these 85 million, let us keep our eyes on the 97 million. And that 97 million even may change because of what has happened in the last 3 years. But we need to know in our policy making, in our decision making, and at every realm, how are we going to evolve? How are we going to stay with the rest of the world where AI is progressing? Now, I really find this very interesting, that AI makes AI stronger and the power of data. So, I don't know how many of you know how ChatGPT was trained by OpenAI. So it uses things like, your crawls, your common crawls, your Twitter, your Wikipedia, your Reddit, your electronic books, your newspaper articles, your journal papers, your even movies, because it uses the captions, the closed captions, to understand the talking style. How do people from these movies, the closed captions in the movies? Your Project Gutenberg, which is all about these electronic books, and Stack Exchange, where some of you who are technology oriented may see Stack Overflow, where you can ask questions and experts are really giving you answers. You're looking at the expert answers that various people may have given responses to. So there is a lot of data that was used. And the thing is, aren't we creating this data all the time? We are all contributing to making this AI stronger. So that's the power of data. We, as users of these systems, are making these systems even stronger. And are we aware of that? That is the security risk that I would say we need to be mindful about. Because in the world that we are living in, and as a speaker from South Africa had said, that we are living in this fourth industrial revolution. This fourth industrial revolution is based on, connectivity, cyberspace, internet. I think it's powered by internet. And in that, the data has really taken on a new meaning. We call it the new oil. Why do we call it the new oil? Because it has become a great resource. So many companies, and they have made these powerful business models which are just based on data. And, and so many traditional businesses have become extinct because of these new data-based companies. So I don't need to give you examples of these data-rich companies and their economic models, because we use them every day. Now, if it's the world's most valuable resource, how well are we guarding it? That becomes a very important question. So the question is that, yes, it is the most valuable resource. And how good is this data and how well are we guarding it is the next important question. And, to guarding it, there are many systems, or many data related security, protection, and privacy regulations in place which speak about, data security speaks about protecting your data from unauthorized access or use. where it can be leaked, deleted, or corrupted. So this is from an organizational perspective, and organizations try and use encryption to prevent hackers from actually using your data. Data protection is making sure that you're backing up your data, and if you have a cyber attack or some kind of a disaster, then your data is not lost, but actually you can bring it back. Then nowadays we have data privacy concerns about how data is being processed, including data sensitivity, regulatory requirements, consent notifications, and your personal identifier informations. Now all these are very, very important, and to circumvent these data privacy issues, regulations which have been put into place. In Europe, we have heard about GDPR. In Japan, we have the Data Protection Act. So all these are very important. But yet with these, what really happens? That's the very important question. What really happens even with these in place? Because these are from an organizational perspective. How are, one second. So, do we even know how secure it is? I remember watching this movie, Social Dilemma, and there was a very nice, quote in there that if something is free, that means you are the product. So if you're not paying for the product, that means you are the product. And we have to be careful, but are we really careful about that? The fact that we use various chatting systems on various devices on our mobile phones, we are on social networking sites, we are blogging, we are putting our content out, and why is all that free? All that is free because you are the product. I think that is something people don't even think about. And it's as an academic in this field, it's something I make sure I tell all my students about it. And I think moment they hear this phrase, they know exactly where it's coming, what it is about. And sometimes the way we are functioning in this fully connected fourth industrial revolutionized society, we can't get away from it. But we have to be aware and mindful about it, that we are the products, and hence be aware of any propaganda or any information that is given to you like that. You should have enough judgment of your own to see whether it is data which is being pushed to you. Now, sometimes we don't even know, we could have all these in place. We could have all the things about, we are securing our data, we are doing our data, protecting our data, we have data privacy. But then we sometimes don't even know who has this data. This was a recent, talk that I had attended, and I really learned this, that, I could be a bank. I could be not a bank, sorry. I'm a customer of a bank, which is on the left-hand side, Bank A, and this is another customer from Bank B. We both have our, cards, credit cards, debit cards, and we are running them in various places. But when we run these in various places, it goes to a central processor. And my bank has access to my data, and my friend's bank has access to his data, but the processor has access to all the data that is using that. So how are they using it? They're probably customizing it, and making products for us. But are we even aware of that? So how our data is, where it is, sometimes it's all over the place and we don't even know where it is. The fact that ChatGPT itself has is it 100 million users? It's 100 million users. So do we know that how ChatGPT or how OpenAI is sharing this data? Or who is it sharing it with? So I said, let's take a look at who is OpenAI really sharing this data. So they are sharing this data with vendors and service providers, other businesses, affiliates, legal entities, AI trainers who can review your conversations. So all the data that ChatGPT it's sharing these data with these persons. Now, it's, so often you realize that your personal information is available to surprisingly a large number of persons without you even realizing who has access to that. So if there are 100 million users, you know the amount of data they have started creating that they have already. The next question, we are after all looking at global security. So the global security question is AI moving too fast? And for this, I think the recent you've heard people talking about it. So there was a little study that was done. This was an AI impact survey which looked at 738 machine learning researchers from June to August 2022, something very recent. And 50% of all AI researchers believe there's a 10% or a greater chance that humans go extinct from our inability to control AI. And the actual question they were asked is shown to you on the screen right here. So I think of it as a box, where once you have let something out, it's very hard to put it back in. So AI, meaning, is it moving too fast? No, I would say no, because when we looked at the history of AI, we started literally in 1950s, and suddenly in 2017 there was a game-changing algorithm with neural networks, which was winning now against a human grandmaster, and then 2017, 2018, as you have seen, has been another race. So it is not moving too fast for us, but it has been around for so long, and with these same algorithms that have gotten better over that long period of 70 odd years really is powerful. So I've missed a slide. 1 second. So let's even try and understand some of the problems with ChatGPT. So we only hear about the good things about ChatGPT. So it's trained on this collective writing of humans across the world, and we have what was past, what was present. There's like so much data that it has. But it means that there are some biases in the system. It has the ability to even generate wrong answers. Because if it doesn't know the right answer, it will just generate something, because it's a generative algorithm. It's predicting what the next set of words will be. And if it doesn't have that, it could create some incorrect or nonsensical answers. And this is called hallucination of facts and fiction, that has been referred to. And it's especially dangerous when it comes to things like medical advice or even getting facts right and on historical events, because that is something we don't want people to really create and give us nonsensical answers, or things that sound plausible but are actually not correct. So we have to be careful about that. So it can generate wrong answers. Mathematical systems also, it can generate wrong answers for mathematical calculations. Now, I showed you all the data that ChatGPT is trained on, and all that data has bias in it already. So if that data has bias, then it is going to generate answers which are based on the inherent bias in the data. So ChatGPT, in a sense, has bias. It has been shown to produce some terrible answers that discriminate against gender, race, minority groups, something where the company is actually trying to mitigate. And it holds all the power. So OpenAI chooses what data is used to train ChatGPT, yet this data is not available to public. We simply don't know the details about how ChatGPT is trained, what data is used, where the data comes from exactly, or what the architecture looks like. We know the data sources, right? We don't know if that is what is all, or there are other data sources that they're using. We're not sure about that. And on March 30th, 2023, which is just a few weeks ago, there was a call to pause AI development. Now, can we really pause development like this? It has reached a record high to reach 100 million users, something that Google struggled with, which not struggled, it took Google a year and 2 months to actually get to those numbers. So how are we going to even pause AI development? As you can see, so hitting this pause button is going to be very hard. But what is it that we have to be mindful about? This pause button. And that is something when the persons who released this technology in this space did not probably think about. That there are 3 rules of technology, and these were taken from Center for Human Technology. The 3 rules. And I do agree with them. First, when you invent a new technology, you uncover a new class of responsibilities. That is very, very true. Why do we have GDPR and Data Protection Acts in place? Because we now have a mechanism for someone to say that they want to be forgotten. Data that a customer can come to a company and say, I want to be forgotten. There was no mechanism to even record the customer before, but now they want to be forgotten. That means there's a mechanism to record them. So there is a technology which was used to record information and data on these customers, and hence there's a new responsibility. There is this whole, even in GDPR, there's a whole thing which says that if a tool is making a recommendation for you, it's like rejecting you for something, you have the reason to know why. And I would really like to see a black box system which was used to give the answer, how they will come up with an answer to tell the person that you were rejected, let's say for a loan, and the why behind it. Because the technology that is like rejecting or accepting a person may be a black box technology where you can't see the reasoning system behind it. And if you ever looked at the reasoning system behind it, it would be large numbers, some many, many numbers. Which is telling you that these numbers, these weights and biases, these are the values, that's why this person is being rejected. I can tell you that would not satisfy anyone. Um, so so the important thing is that if we inventing a new technology, we do uncover a new class of responsibilities we didn't know before. If the technology confers power, it starts a race. And Robert Oppenheimer is probably one who probably understands this the best. We have seen how this race has started in the nuclear space. And if we do not coordinate, the race ends in tragedy. So as a society, we have to now think, how are we going to coordinate this unleashing of this AI, which is creating this mass data, using this mass data into the society, because it's no longer with just a few persons, it's with everyone. And the fact it's with everyone, we have to really make sure how are we coordinating that. Putting it on pause, slowing down, are those the answers? It may or may not be. I don't know that, because if you're putting it on pause, is everyone being put on pause? I don't think we have even some kind of an organization which can even put all the tech companies in one room and decide that they are deciding to put it in pause internationally. There's no UN for technology, if I was to say that. And, to end this conversation that I've had with you, I wanted to leave you with a food for thought. And I was struggling with exactly what is the food for thought that I should leave you with. I said, let me use my new tool. And so I put in Chat GPT, what do I tell my viewers as a food for thought for this, I gave it some context. And it gave me this food for thought, which I was quite satisfied with. What are the implications of creating machines that are smarter than us? And I think that is an interesting food for thought, which ChatGPT created for me. And as a society, as we are looking at global security concerns, this is something important for us as we are moving forward. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And indeed, you have given me and our audience food for thought. Specifically, we have seen the new paradigm of artificial intelligence. We've seen artificial intelligence past and artificial intelligence the future. New paradigm, specifically concepts in the philosophy of AI science brought into the common lexicon. Repetitive to creative. Language, culture, common participation, community participation, and information-driven societal need. We've also seen presented the case for copyright, ownership, and also industry awareness. I was interested to hear, as academics, does AI pose a challenge to our jobs? In addition, does AI pose a challenge to our students? We understood that there is a need to safeguard the resource of data, but in this context, who would be the custodians? We were interestingly presented with 3 rules of technology: responsibility, the benefit of power, and the coordination of data. And I'd like to thank the presenter for this great insight. I'm now going to open the discussion up to our presenters. I've appreciated and valued your presentation and your insights. And we will open this up to our audience, but I have a few questions of my own that I would like to start with. Firstly, if I can actually direct this first question at Professor Annalai Jourdain. Can I ask, how would you define harmonious machine and computer interaction in the future? It was interesting to see what you presented and that insight into Industry 5.0. So I'll repeat again. How would you define harmonious machine and computer interaction? Professor Anna.
Okay. I was also thinking about that. And what I came up with is, again, if it's harmonious, firstly, if I want something to be done, there mustn't be load shedding like we have in South Africa. Things must happen, but okay, that's just off the cuff. But harmonious, I think, is when us humans can give an instruction via the internet, artificial intelligence, whatever the technology is, and we can trust that technology to be effective and not in the end overtake us, because that was the question of 5IR. What's the difference is the trust in it. So harmonious, I think, is the trust that should be there, and the accuracy, the speed, whatever we need for this machine to execute without becoming too intelligent to listen to us anymore. I think that's short or sweet what I see as harmonious.
Fantastic. Thank you. A great response. I'm going to pose the next question to Professor Taylor. Professor Taylor, may I ask you, what advice would you give to emerging researchers with regards to researching in unique contexts? Your presentation was really clear that the Caribbean has unique and distinctive and discrete contexts that need to be understood. So I'm going to ask you the question again. What advice would you give to emerging researchers with regards to researching in unique contexts?
Sure. Thank you very much. For me, I think the context, one of the things I always talk about, especially as we begin to tackle problems, things like data, things like information, things like research. I think if they are ever going to be transformational, ever going to make the kind of impact that they are supposed to have in the setting, they really all have to be contextual. So, what would be my advice to emerging researchers? I think, first of all, consider your context. So, what I tried to present was a context of, reading climate change, but through a SIDS lens. And what I hope that was taken away was that when you begin to read it through your context, there's a whole set of research questions that emerge, which are similar in some respects to when you think about climate change in general, but are also very specific and have the potential, really, if answered, to transform lives. So for emerging researchers, yes, become very versed in your science or in your area, but then begin to read your science through your context. So if you are a climate change researcher, and a climate change researcher is not limited to, those like me who model. This is, some of the very researchers whose wonderful presentations that we have had. If you are in the Caribbean, you must begin to think new technologies are going to be needed, especially in the Caribbean, for dealing with mitigation or dealing with adaptation. Some of that technology will, of necessity, require, for example, the big data that was talked about, or the AI capabilities if in fact they are going to become transformational. We know it will be in things like renewable energy. We know it will be things like mapping risks for, let's say, forestry using satellite data. We know it will be new technologies to deal with things like waste. And I'm just giving some examples. Ask the questions within your context, and you'll be surprised at the world of research that emerges. But more importantly, what will happen is that the research that you produce will have the potential to be really transformational for your context. So that I think is, the answer that comes to mind immediately.
Thank you, Professor Taylor. An insightful direction for future research and research questions, and also opens up potential of collaborations in terms of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and transdisciplinary areas of study. The next question I have for Dr. Mansingh. Your presentation was clear, from the past to the future. But can I ask you, what are the potential implications of AI for authenticity of art and culture? And does this have an impact on what we understand cultural appropriation to be? So to repeat, what are the implications of AI on authenticity of art and culture? And does this have any implications for cultural appropriation as we know it? Thank you.
I think it very much does. I don't know if anyone has these answers as yet. So far, all the I should say the legal cases have thrown out AI as a creator. So anything that anything AI can create has not been copyrighted in most of the countries. South Africa was that only example of AI being given a patent, not really a copyright. So in the terms of creative industries, I think it is something we have to really be, as Prof. Taylor said, we have to understand the context. And in a Jamaican context, that is something where we should examine this. And also in terms of understanding that if we are using AI as a tool, I think that has not emerged as yet. That okay, AI cannot be given, let's say, a copyright. But the person who's creating something and using AI as a tool, right now we do calculations using a calculator. Those calculations are not considered valid. So that mechanism, I think we still need to examine internationally, we need to examine that and then determine that culturally we understand all the aspects of it so that we can work and ensure that these societies or these cultural practices and our cultural the economic system behind it is not jeopardized.
Thank you. A sound answer to my question. I know that Professor Kotelios is not with us, but I will pose a question to the audience on his behalf. What is then the value added proposition of purpose in innovation? So this one's for the audience. What is the value added proposition of purpose in innovation? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say thank you for joining us today. We have seen talks that have spanned different continents. We have seen talks that have actually presented the risks, the challenges, the problems, and also solutions with global security and its perspectives of the future. Can I ask you that you join us tomorrow? Because we will hear presenters that will speak into the space of health security through ICT for design, moving towards security in the digital economy in terms of leadership, agriculture and technology, food, nutrition and health, and finally, the power of education. I would like to say thank you to the University of the West Indies, and UETV, and our presenters. And I would like to celebrate and say congratulations to the University of the West Indies on your 75th anniversary. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.